Hi, I'm Dr. Chad Larson. You know how you've heard that people gain a little bit of weight every year? The statistics go anywhere from a couple pounds up to like 10 pounds a year. And then you go through a few decades under your belt and all of a sudden you're overweight and increased risk factor for what I've talked a lot about, metabolic syndrome, which has waist circumference as one of the 5 criteria for metabolic syndrome, and it's a major risk factor for heart disease, cancer, certain types of Alzheimer's, dementia, diabetes, obesity. So it's something that we just want to be aware of first of all, and then see what we can do to mitigate those risk factors. But at least one research paper indicated that the majority of the weight that we gain per year is actually during the holidays. The 6 to 8 weeks during the holidays is the time where most of that weight is gained. Other studies say that that's a little bit excessive, that other survey type studies have indicated that people don't gain that much weight, but pretty much across the board, most of the time that this is researched, there is some consistent weight gain during the holidays. There's maybe a little bit of a discrepancy as to exactly how much. So assuming that weight gain, definitely happens during the holidays, we're pretty sure it's not like muscle weight gain or increase in, bone density or something like that. For the most part, it's going to be fat accumulation because we're making choices that we don't typically make. And whether it's excessive calories or excessive foods, high in sugars and refined carbohydrates, weight gain definitely happens to some degree during the holiday. So we just came through Thanksgiving, so hope you had a great time celebrating and giving thanks and appreciation for those people and events in your life. I certainly had a great Thanksgiving, but it made me think about what are some things that we can do going forward for the remainder of the holidays this season to mitigate this kind of weight gain, because indulgence and feasting is just part of human culture. That's just a normal thing to happen. So what we can do to offset some of that. So I've just got a few tips I wanted to run through. One of them is just being mindful of that fact, being mindful of the fact that we're more prone to weight gain. So try to eat more mindfully. And if you just have, kind of a process where you're kind of thinking through what kind of food choices you're going to have, just thinking about it, in other words, just not eating mindlessly, that alone could be really, really helpful for a lot of people. Another thing is kind of where you position yourself in a family gathering or a gathering with friends where there's going to be lots of food around. Try not to hover around the snack area, because that's typically where there's lots of sugary and processed grain type foods. And so try not to hover around that snack area. And if you do grab snacks, try to have something that's more healthy. Like usually there's going to be carrots or celery or jicama or one of those kind of things. Of course, it's okay to indulge and have some other snacks, but just be a little bit more mindful of the choices that you're making so it doesn't accumulate so fast and all of a sudden you've wolfed down like a whole bag of chips and kind of didn't even think about it because you're socializing or whatever. So it's easy to do, but just trying to be mindful of kind of where you position yourself relative to the food that's in the house. Another thing is bring your own dessert. I brought a dessert to Thanksgiving that I made myself, and it was a gingerbread pumpkin cheesecake. And it was super, super sweet, but it was actually totally sugar-free, and nobody knew it. It just tasted like it was loaded with sugar, and it's super, super good. It was a big hit, but it was totally sugar-free. So when you bring a dessert like that, you can totally indulge in the dessert, but knowing that you made it and it's sugarless, then it makes it a little bit less likely that's gonna accumulate to your weight gain. Some other tips are be aware of alcoholic beverages. Alcoholic beverages are a really, really fast way to increase your calories, increase your sugary type carbohydrates, whether it's alcoholic or non-alcoholic, frankly, beverages in general. I know this might be a time where you might lower your defenses a little bit and have like soda or something like that. Those increase your fat accumulation with all that high fructose corn really, really fast. So try to, like eliminate that would be ideal, and just choose other kind of non-sugar and non-high fructose corn syrup kind of thing. Same thing with alcoholic beverages. Try to choose beverages that don't have any added sugar to them, have very low carbohydrate content. There's lots of choices to think about. You can just Google, low carb alcoholic drinks. You'll see all kinds of things like a little bit of tequila with some club soda, or some, lime mineral water, and mix with some lime juice, something like that. Or maybe you can sweeten it with a little bit of stevia or monk fruit. In fact, I meant to throw that in, that's what I used on the gingerbread pumpkin dessert. Is I used monk fruit as the sweetener. It hits the tongue and tells your brain that you just had something really, really sweet, but you didn't. And so it doesn't come with all that potential for insulin spiking, glucose spiking, and then you start turning all that carbohydrate into fat. It's a really easy way that you could mitigate that response. So like the desserts and the alcoholic beverages is really where they tend to rack up. And other than that, it's going to be the refined type foods, the grains and biscuits, and anything made from flour is going to be totally, it's going to cause a spike in your blood sugar, spike in your insulin. And then we know insulin is kind of the gatekeeper of, are you burning fat or are you storing fat? So we want to try to keep that minimalized. The gingerbread pumpkin cheesecake thing that I made is coconut flour, so it wasn't a refined grain. Certainly there's some carbohydrates in it, but it's a tiny fraction because there's no sugar in there than what would be made, kind of from a conventional recipe. And then also, don't forget to work in your intermittent fasting. This is kind of the final tip that, whether you're doing kind of a 12-hour overnight fast, or try to stretch it out to a 14-hour or even 16-hour, which pretty much means you're skipping breakfast. And you can have your coffee, your tea, water, you can have all that stuff, but as you increase that time frame before you have your first meal, that's a great fat burning period for your body. Really help you to maintain that fat adaptation that hopefully you've been working on. And then if that's comfortable for you, work in some of the 24-hour fasts. I try to do, especially during the holidays, a 24-hour fast once a week, and that's really helpful to kind of balance some of the indulgences and just kind of keep the fat burning going, keeping the insulin down, keeping the blood sugar down, so that you don't have to try to hustle like crazy in January to try to undo some of the effects. That's not really the best model. We're going to kind of keep some of these things going while still indulging and feasting during the holidays. We want to balance that also with some smart thinking. So hopefully those are some helpful tips to keep you healthy during the holidays and decrease the chance of accumulating any of that excess fat. So I'm gonna finish up my hike, and that's another thing. Just keep exercising. Take your family or your friends on a hike. After a big meal, it's another great way to mitigate some of that fat burning, to kind of keep the fat burning going, mitigate some of that weight gain. So hopefully that's helpful. I'll keep reading the studies and bringing you the information. Happy holidays. We'll talk to you soon. Keep it real.